It's been a monumental day for the Vice President, the candidate for the New Patriotic Party. And today he has been delivering a speech that his own people term his speech to show that he is indeed different from the president that he serves. And today we're going to be assessing that message, Bawumia's case for president. We'll get into that. And if you've missed it, it just ended just a few minutes back, around 30 minutes back, when he wrapped it up and he said a few things. And he wanted to really assert the point that he is his own man. Let's go through that for you in a summary for those of you who are just joining us here on PM Express who want to catch up on what Bawumia had said tonight. It was billed as a speech that will set him apart from the president, from his current boss, and from the things that you didn't like about the government. He wanted to show you that he will be different if you elect him. So did he achieve that? What did he actually say? One of the first things he said today was laying the foundation for us to begin to appreciate that he is one of the people who, of course, sits in cabinet in the EMT level. He did not throw the EMT under the bus. He was very emphatic that he was on the subcommittee on the EMT to cabinet, and we do not have any decision-making powers. He stresses that particular point. They are advisory, but I am very proud of the quality of advice we have been providing over the years to cabinet. And so he makes 2 points here. I won't throw the entire EMT and the subcommittee I was on under the bus because he's part of it. How can he do that? He makes the point, yes, we don't have decision-making powers, but we have provided solid advice. Okay, if you provide solid advice, his point actually in there is that advice is advice. Whoever you're advising can decide to take or not. And he's beginning the speech today from the very onset, telling us that, yeah, I have tried my best, but they may not have listened to me in some respects. And you see some of those areas that he suggested without actually saying it categorically, that they didn't listen to him on. We'll come to that. And he says, as a vice president, he's like, what a driver's mate, he says. So he's not in the driver's seat. But he says if he's voted for, he will be in charge. He will move from the driver's seat and he'll become president. I will be there. Then he'll be driving himself. Again, this speech was crafted to make two main fundamental points, I believe. One is, yeah, there's a lot has gone wrong in this government, but I am not in charge. Somebody else is. I advise the person, but the person has the final authority on this. And then secondly, he want to appeal to you that if you understand that, then put me in a seat, then I can make decisions. A few decisions, he says, he will take if he moves from the driver's mate into the driver's seat. And we found it interesting to run a comparison between the program that is currently being implemented by the government, right, in the 2024 budget, but also in the program before the IMF, and what Bawumia is actually proposing right now. And some of them are just diametrically opposed to each other. For example, revision and expansion of taxes on gambling revenue. That's the policy of government currently. Bawumia says he will eliminate betting tax. That tells you quickly that he's beginning to depart, even with policies that are currently being implemented. Again, removal of selected VAT exemptions, including 15% VAT on electricity. Do you know what Bawumia says about that very controversial tax handle that the finance minister has written to the ECG to implement? He says he will eliminate VAT on electricity if he wins. That is, if the tax is still on our books by 2025. Again, departing from what is actually a government policy that government intends to implement. Tonight, we've seen a statement from the finance ministry to the ECG and NETCO asking them to suspend the implementation, because the finance minister has written to them to say, go ahead, implement. As you know, Labour had said that won't happen, and now what? We will shut this country down if you dare. Well, it appears that the finance minister has been forced to backtrack now, and he's eating some humble pie, a huge one indeed, forced down his throat by the Labour unions. And then you still stay with Bawumia on the differences within government policy and what he's proposing to do if he wins power. We know about the emissions tax. It's been very controversial, right? We also know about tax on plastic and packaging. He says he will eliminate emissions tax if he comes into power, if he wins or not. So that clearly begins to show you the difference between himself and the current policies that the government is implementing. So you have to beg, is begging to be asked indeed. So what is it that he's been telling the government? What advice has he been given to the government on this matter? Because they still go to cabinet. These things get approved in parliament, in cabinet, before it goes to parliament if it has to be approved. So remember what he said at the beginning of my slide. I can just advise. He's actually suggesting to us in many, many ways that I'm advising, but you're not taking my advice. So if you vote for me, I will undo the things they're currently doing. That's actually a loud statement. That's a lot to unpack, and I have the men to do just that for us. So the whole list of things. He will abolish the e-levy is another one. He said that tonight. He will abolish the e-levy. The e-levy is still being implemented under the government of which he's the vice president. Again, making a very loud pronouncement that I'm advising. Hasn't been listened to. And that's a very important point. Elimination of VAT on exploration services. That's something that the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources has intimated. No more import duty on solar panels. Tax incentives will be provided for film producers. Flat tax will be introduced also. So he is beginning to set a tone for a different Bawumia, different from what he's been part of. Tax amnesty will be given. Also, there will be no manual or paper filing of taxes from 2025 if he's elected into government. He also talks about the number of ministers. Again, here, he is emphatically distancing himself from the policy of his boss currently, who believed the thing is not in how many, but it's in the results. Bawumia is actually saying the opposite. It's both in the numbers of people that you appoint to form your government, but also what they deliver. He says he's going to have only 50 ministers, no more than that, and deputy ministers. And again, in here, there's a competition between himself and JM. JM says, 60. He says 50. And that's a point in politics about who goes first with his statement and policy. Go first, I want to catch you, which is what he's done. I want to take it to UPSA right now because my colleague, Kojo Brace, is standing by. One of the things we want to measure right now is reaction, not from the folks within the MPP, because we know that already. I want to hear from the identifiable groups who were invited to this particular briefing, because he addressed them and tried to present to them policies to address their concerns. One of them is Guta. Guta has been complaining about taxes, about inflation, about interest rates, also about the depreciation of the city. So did they hear anything today to convince them, and when I say Guta, I mean the Ghana Union Traders Association, to convince them that President Bawumia will be different from Vice President Bawumia, who is part of this current government? My colleague, Kojo Brace, is standing by with the president of Guta. Tell me, what has been the reaction? I'm curious to hear his thoughts.
Well, Evans, the reaction from the room itself, for a start, I mean, it was such that anytime he brought up a policy proposal, you could see some people applauding. And I was speaking to some people after the presentation. All the people I spoke to seemed to suggest that, well, this is a well thought through presentation, one that speaks to the heart of whatever people like the traders have been speaking to in some time now. I mean, Dr. Joseph Obeng is here with me. We'll go straight to him. Doc, so earlier I spoke to you. You seem to really appreciate all that the Vice President did. But you've been in the past speaking about taxes. The Vice President has spoken about the removal of e-levy. He's speaking about the removal of the emissions tax, the VAT on electricity, if that is still there. I mean, how do you see all of the things that the Vice President spoke about in his presentation?
I'm overly excited. This is exactly what I wanted to hear, and I heard it. It means that they have been listening to whatever pleas that we have been doing. The communication that we do with you on TV and all that is being listened to. And of course, it's all about he adopting compliance as a tool of revenue collection in his administration. And that is going to simplify tax collection system. That's why he's talking about flat rate, and that he's going to even make duty payment flat rated, starting with spare parts. Why can't I be excited if this is what, after all these years we've said have been ahead of and being going to be adopted? So we are very excited. the fact that he said that invigilation should be the thing of the past in his administration, it means that he has also listened to a plea by the invigilation by VAT, and that being in government now, I believe he is talking to GRA to stop those exercises. And that, for us, is very positive. And the fact that he is also saying that GRA should, in his administration, he will do post-class audit for 5 years. Yeah, that's 5 yearly is okay, so that we can have the freedom and peace to, because we are not to be treated as common criminals when doing business, and that 5 years is okay. What is happening now is 1 year, every 2 years, they will come do postcards or they charge you some amount to pay and all that, and that does not augur well. So what he says is that he's going to expand the tax net. He said that because that's why he started with the 10 number and all that, and that has captured a lot of capable taxpayers who are outside the tax net, and that is what he's going to use to make taxes affordable so that everybody will pay. That's what I understood, and that he says that he's going to make things very flat. When you do that, it means that he's going to take away all the leakages in the tax system. And this is what we have drummed over and over and over, that when you do your the duty flat, it means that nobody is going to, take advantage, the custom officer or the agent or even the trader, because we all know that this is the flat rate that we have to pay.
So you're saying that after listening to the flag bearer, you are convinced that going forward, things will be cheaper for us, the consumers?
Yeah. It means that if he's able, in case he wins power, and then he adopts it, because we know that this is feasible, this is workable. It's not rocket science. These things that we've said is what other countries have done, and they are being highly competitive in the market. We are very uncompetitive because of the high rate of duties that we pay. And he might have recognized that and said that he's going to simplify things for us. He's going to make things flat rated for us, so that affordability, and then expand the tax net. This is all that we have been saying all this time. And so it's very important that, because it's very good that a leader should listen to what his people, that's all democracy is about. And I'm overly excited, and I believe that all the other political parties should also go on the same tangent, and then know the needs of the business community and structure their policies around that.
But in the next 30 seconds, you believe that if he assumes power, he is able to do that? He will be able to do all that?
He was able to establish some credibility, because he said that when they came to power, he was able to do this, and that they removed the nuisance taxes and all that, because they wanted to move from taxation to production. And so they did well for the first term, but on the second term, because of the COVID and this Ukraine war and all that, they had challenge. So he has said where he was doing well and where he had the challenge. And then he also took his time to itemize those things that he has done in the digitization, that every Ghanaian know that it is working. And so for that reason, you know that there's credibility in what he's saying. And this is what I wish that all other political parties should now take us, because I believe this year's election is going to be intellectual based. Anybody who go on the insult is gone. It's not going to. So it shouldn't be personalized or even politicized. That this party. Let's listen to them and see the messages that carry the meat, and then we go for it. And so I'm very excited the way things are going. Because don't forget that only last week I also I was at the Afrofanto movement, butterfly movement, or whatever, I don't know, their dialogue, economic dialogue. And so we do that. And he's saying that this is not his manifesto. So we are going to engage him to add more, so that the manifesto will be rich, so that they can make it as a whole policy to the benefit of the Ghanaian business community.
Evan, so there you heard it. Traders are very okay with what the Vice President put forth today. Let's see how in the coming days the discussions will be.
Kojo Bridge, thank you very much. And that's a first reaction there from one major group in this country. They listened to the Vice President. The Vice President attempted to address some of the challenges that they've always had with the economy and how it affects their business. So we've heard from them. There are many more we need to hear from on the day when the Vice President delivered his message of departure from his boss, the President, where he asserted that he is his own man, asserted his own independence to champion his own policies. And so there's a lot more to unpack. You want to stay with us for that. But as you know, PM Express is always brought to you by Syntex Tank. It is strong, it is tough. Alumobitas experience greatness in every moment. Ghana AIDS Commission, Pepsodent, every smile matters. And you want to make a call now to Syntex Tank and get their double layer tanks. And also, you can get it bespoke. Whatever size, whatever color, just tell them they will provide it. Plus, they will give you 7 years warranty. So pick a phone and call them. 0244 335 168. Shop online at syntexgh.com. You're stronger, you're tough. Pepsodent is the cavity fighter that you need. It is fortified with perfluoride and microcalcium ingredients, sealing tiny and invisible holes in your teeth. This prevents cavities, keeps your teeth strong and mouth healthy. Pepsodent cavity comes in 175G family pack, 120G Ejakwa pack, and 65G 12G sachet as well. So you can always get what you can afford at any time. Don't just use toothpaste that brushes your teeth. Use Pepsodent that protects your teeth. Pepsodent, every smile matters. My guest will join me for a conversation after this break. Thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. My guest joining me in the studio is Dr. Gideon Boako, a spokesperson for Dr. Bawumia. He just rushed over from the UPSA where the Vice President delivered that seminal speech in an attempt to show that he's different from his boss and, of course, charting his own course. He's with me in the studio. Dr. Echesi Kanku, Senior Lecturer at the Ghana Institute of Journalism, and he's also Director of the Research and Development. Joins me in the studio. But, of course, he is a man who's writing a book, and that's really why he's here. He's been assessing the space quite vigorously, and that's why he's here, not because he's a lecturer. So that needs to be emphasized. And Asa Sante is a Senior Political Science Lecturer at the Political Science Department, University of Ghana, joins us via Zoom. And gentlemen, I want to start with, I guess, the central theme of the Vice President's message tonight, where he says he is nothing more than a driver's mate.
As Vice President, I am like a driver's mate. But by the grace of God, if you make me the president, I will be in the driver's seat with constitutional... I will be in the driver's seat with constitutionally mandated authority to pursue my vision and my priorities. So what do I want to do in terms of vision and priorities and policies if you give me the opportunity by the grace of God to become President of the Republic of Ghana?
So one of the most important things he wanted to do tonight was to show us that he's different, create some distance between himself and his boss. Dr. Echesi Kanku, did he achieve that?
Yes, he did. This was a vice presidential speech in a manner that we've never seen before. On all the indices or indicators of a good political speech, he comes up very highly on them. In terms of the substance, in terms of the content, it was very substantive. In terms of the delivery, it was very lucid, it was very smooth. In terms of the clarity, it was really forthright. He was easy to understand. In terms of the tone, it was a very straightforward speech. It was a very passionate speech. It was a very invigorating speech. And in terms of the functionality of the speech itself, in terms of what he sought to achieve, which is really your question, he did achieve that. And if you ask me, I'm not surprised, just because he really, one of the central narratives that was characterizing the Bawumia proposition was how different he was going to be from the incumbent president. And I think that is a very huge challenge that every incumbent vice president running for president has to face. And that was the central question, or the central narrative that he needed to answer in the speech. I would say that he did achieve that by coming out with very, very, very bold measures and very bold initiatives which departed from the president. If you ask me, I cannot remember a lot of times that has happened, that an incumbent vice president went north of the sitting president himself. And so he went very, very, very to very extreme lengths to show that he had the courage of his convictions, and that this is what he believed in, and that he was very, very prepared. If it even meant going against what the incumbent president had, he was prepared to do that in order to achieve his goal. You see, the thing about Dr. Bawumia is that when you look at it in the overall totality of his presentation, it is a gentleman who believes in the courage of his convictions. It's not just a political thing that is happening over there. He believes in certain specific things, digitization, and how that is going to improve the lives of Ghanaians. And to the extent that he is an activist vice president who was very, very, very energized and involved in the presidency, he needed to demonstrate and to show to the people of Ghana how this was going to change their lives.
And you say he did
lives.
that.
And he did.
Let me bring in Dr. Sassan. Doc, what about you? What's your verdict on that central question he needed to answer tonight? Did he answer? You mark scripts. If you were scoring him just on that one single question, how different are you from your boss and from what you've been part of? How did he score? Hello, Dr. Sasante.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can, yes. How will you score him on that central question?
Yes, I'll shy away from the score and explain the issues.
No problem. No problem at all.
Yeah, if you look at his delivery, he's trying to depart from the course of his boss. And he gave a lot of evidence to that effect about his vision and the rest of them. But you can also say that some of the things that he said is just going around to repackage what has been said, and you need to tweak it in a certain way so as to gain a certain leverage on that. And for me, that's where it's a bit difficult to take some of them. But by and large, he was able to cover certain grounds and, as it were, dissociating himself from certain policies and all that, and then going to tell you that, yes, if giving the nod, I'll be my own man and I'll be able to do ABC and the rest of them. If you look at the fact that he talks about the issue that he is a driver's mate, economic management team, he was there, the body was just an advisory body, fine. Right. But if you give advice and advice doesn't work, do you continue to stay in the system that you think that this is the best advice I've given? I believe that you should be able to use it. If you don't use it, all right, and you stay in the system, what do you want to tell me about that? That is a question that remains unanswered from the narrative. That's what I glean from that. Right. So it's not enough to say that, yes, we give advice. But if you give advice based on your conviction and the advice is not working, you vote with your feet. We recall when Mr. Kufuor, during the PNDC time, he was with the government and all that. At a point in time, they gave all manner of advice and he left the government. We have seen it many times. And of course, this is not new in the Ghanaian political system. But you can also credit him for some of the things that he said, new ideas, and it tells you that you want to depart. I will scrap the e-levy. I will, do some of the things which in your intro you mentioned that you do away. That was a clear departure from his boss. And that one too, I commend him for that. But there's one thing that was missing. All right. You saw him continue to attribute or blame the government non-performance toward Russian-Ukraine war and all that. Yes,
and
that is a fact. But what about the role of the government itself in some of these things? That was conspicuously missing. Is he telling us that the government itself did not have a hand in the economic malaise that we find ourselves in? That I struggle to really understand that, because I thought that this was an opportunity for him to be bold on these things, that yes, some things went wrong from our side, but believe that going forward, if I'm giving the nod, I will be in a better position to right some of the wrongs. It was too difficult for him to see. But governance is nothing but what you should be able to be forthright with some of these things.
And you raised an important point. You raised an important point. I want to put it to Dr. Gideon Bako on that. Gideon, the mere fact that he wants to create a departure is an admission that things haven't gone exactly the way at least he anticipated. There have been some mistakes made, and that's why he wants to create a departure. But Doc makes a point that we didn't hear him admit anything, in the sense to say, yeah, on this one, we made a mistake. He didn't say it, but he's telling us what he'll do differently. Although that in itself tells the story. But he didn't verbalize it. Isn't that important in the credibility that we attach to what he delivered?
Well, first of all, I think we are making a mistake. The fact that you're my boss, you are leading an organization, and we are all following you. You have your vision. And the fact that it is time for me to also espouse my vision to take over from you. And I say things contrary to what you had put in place already. Does not necessarily mean that what you did was wrong. Every leader has his or her own vision. That is why we say a new king, a new law.
Except that it doesn't work like that in politics.
As the vice president said, he premised his vision on something. He said that the circumstances and the things that occasioned certain dreams and visions of the incumbent government will be different from the circumstances that will exist when he becomes president. And therefore, there are some good footprints of this government that is going to continue with. But based on the changes and the circumstances that have come up, he's going to come up with new vision. So if your boss has a vision, and you also come to say that next year, given the opportunity, this is the way I want to go, you are not necessarily saying what he's doing is wrong. It could as well be there are some limitations in terms of implementation, idea-wise, with the vision that is currently on the table. That's fine. But we should not conclude by saying that because Vice President Bawumia is showing some policy departure from what is being done today means there's something wrong. President Kufuor had his own vision.
I want to read you.
Golden age of business.
I want to read you. That was said at the beginning of the speech, but I want to read to you the subject on the levy, the way he put it. Quote, to move towards a cashless economy, however, we have to encourage the population to use electronic channels of payment. To accomplish this, there will be no taxes on digital payments under my administration. The e-levy will therefore be abolished. That is absolutely categorical on the
what I'm saying.
What he's not saying here is the current policy is a bad one.
No, that could
because the government
what I'm
agenda,
saying, I just want you to open your mind to two different positions. That is what I'm calling for. I'm not saying it is either or the combination of the two. It can be that I want to take a departure because I see something fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, but that's the question I am asking.
It could as well be that I don't have any problem with it, but where I want to go and the focus I want to have, this is how I want to execute my plan.
So that's the second one, but I'm asking a question on the first.
So the vice president feels that yes, President Kufuor had a vision, and in executing that vision, he introduced e-levy. For him, if he's given the opportunity to serve as president, he is going to abolish e-levy. That has nothing to do with whether or not he feels it was wrong or right. He thinks that from next year going, and based on the circumstances and how he envisages the economy running. He doesn't think e-levy will be practical to implement. That will help people. So he's going to abolish that. Not e-levy alone, betting tax, VAT on electricity, and
emissions.
Emission tax. He thinks that
but those three taxes, he put it in a separate context from e-levy. The e-levy was the most categorical one. Those ones, he says, in essence, there's no fiscal space now. I'm going to put in place policies if I get elected. And those policies, he believes, will create a fiscal space. And when the fiscal space is created, I will then remove 15% of VAT if it's still there. I will take away the emissions levy, and I'll take away the third one, right? So in essence, he's saying, I believe they are right policies now because there's no fiscal space. That's what he's saying in essence.
So what he's saying is that he believes and he knows a reason was given for the imposition of those levies and taxes. Now, in order to do away with them, he has to deal with the problem that occasioned, the imposition of those taxes. And he is a very far-sighted person. He does not want to just make a sweeping statement that will do that. He says that, look, there's a problem that is occasioning this today. Given the opportunity, he's going to put A, B, C, D pillars in place to make sure that problem is well anchored, and that will give him the space to do away with these taxes. So he has a dream and a vision to do away with VAT on electricity, to do away with emission tax, to do away with betting tax. But he has to prepare the grounds to make sure that he is not just going to do away with them whilst the problem is existing.
Why hasn't he done that?
No.
Already.
It's not him. Because he is not the president.
He's not in the driver's seat.
He's not in the driving seat. He's not the one who calls the show. He's not the one who takes the final decision. He can offer his ideas. And that is where when Doc said that the fact that he says he's advisor means that if he advises and is not taken, he should opt out. First and foremost, the fact that I'm an advisor to you, and I'm saying that I'm an advisor, I don't take the final decision, does not mean that I've given you an advice and you never took. Let us not jump into such conclusion.
But he give the advice?
He's stating the obvious, that look, the role that he was given as vice president, the constitutional limitations are there. But the president also had assigned him a responsibility to be the chairman of the economic management team, which is an advisory role. And that is the truth.
Did he give the advice?
He's there as a vice president. We all even give advice on all of that. So there are so many government policies and projects.
So he did give the advice. He was not listened to.
He had stated his position on e-levy way before e-levy was implemented. Remember in 2020 before the election, he stated his position.
But then it was implemented. And the question
exactly. So contrary to his position, e-levy
of which he is the number 2, so went ahead and implemented disregarding his views.
Because the Ghanaian people have entrusted their authority and sovereignty in the hands of the president. Bawumia is not the one who went for elections. So at best, and like all of us do, as I sit here, I can only advise Bawumia on certain things. If I do and he doesn't take, it does not mean I had a superior opinion to what he is proposing.
But you must have the courage of your convictions to say, well, if you're not taking, I don't want to be part of this. No.
I mean, it is not fair to make that. You are with multimedia. It is not every decision that multimedia has taken that you have supported in the boardroom.
Yeah, but if I feel passionately about it,
when there's a collective decision, and it's to be executed, all of us, Prof is an academic, we are all academics, we sit in the academic board meetings, we take decisions as scholars. It's not everything that you support. But you look at the larger interests, and it cannot be that you think that your idea should always reign supreme. You're not the only person sitting in cabinet. So you are Bawumia. If you say something, and the entirety of cabinet decide that this one we have to go this way, then you say I'm checking now. How? You have to be there. If you have something good to offer, be there in the ethical way and offer what you think you can do better. But when others' ideas supersede override what you are proposing, don't think that you are the repository of knowledge and therefore when you say something it should be sacrosanct and must be accepted that way. The vice president does not believe in that. He doesn't believe his ideas are sacrosanct. So if there are anything that comes up and he has to proffer solutions, he does. He has to offer advice. He writes and gives recommendations. if those recommendations are taken. And there are a lot of things that he has also proposed and suggested, which have been taken. There are others which he has suggested, which have not been taken. But that's normal with human life. You cannot have your way all the time. But when those in charge and the majority of the people around feel that this is the way we go, you may have your own view. The best you can do is to support it. But when you are given the opportunity like he is seeking today, then he can tell you that given the opportunity, this is the path I will take. It doesn't mean that the person who took the other decision was absolutely wrong. There may be a justification for that. So that is the context within which you have to look at. Other than that, you all say that when you have arguments with your wife in the house and you don't agree, then you have to leave the marriage. It doesn't happen like that. You have to stay and do the good things that you can do. You understand? That is the way I think we have to go.
Yeah, Doc, I hear you saying something.
Hello?
Yeah.
I think Dr. Buakon has taken the conversation to another level. The issue is that, look, there are advices we give, and if they are ignored, fine. But there are some which are so germane to what we have, we have sold ourselves into believing that we are capable of doing. If that is not done, all right, before Dr. Bawumia became the vice president, he has endeared himself to the hearts of many in terms of his economic analysis and ideas and all that. And all of it, sudden, we saw the downturn of the economy and all that. And he's saying that all the advice that he gave in that direction, if it's not working, it should continue to stay there, simply because people have superior, economic ideas. Then what's the point of, having an expert within a certain system? On that score, I believe that there is something which doesn't gel well in that regard. We must be bold and face it. Yes. Otherwise, yes, you continue. Is that your duty to continue to give just advice?
Let me also get Gideon. Yes, in our here form.
I have a disagreement.
It is so.
At what level do you decide that this position I want to take is not supported, and so I should? And who decides that? You understand? Let us not boss the vice president to a corner. And you're talking about economic performance. He feels that despite the challenges that we have experienced, yes, there are limitations. But why should he leave? Because he feels that he's been able to support the government to deliver an economic performance that is even superior to what he inherited. And so there's a justification that despite the limitations, we are doing better, okay, in relative terms. So why? Then everybody must abandon government. You understand? So don't let us speak to boss people to a corner that why did you offer a position and it was not taken and you should leave. That should not be the practical way to go. The practical way to go is to weigh your options to see that, yes, if you are in, what else can you contribute? If he had left government, would he have proposed gold for oil to salvage the currency when there was crisis? That is now anchoring, providing the shock absorbers to us in terms of foreign reserves. If he had left, would he have gotten the opportunity to implement things like mobile money interoperability and the many reforms that are happening? So you don't just say that because you had a position and that was not taken. In any case, nobody has come to say that the vice president proposed ideas and they were not taken. He's only telling you the truth, that look, the position that he was given and the role that was assigned to him as chairman of the economic management is an advisory position. If you advise and things go well, you are part of it. If it doesn't go well, you take collective responsibility. That is what he's doing.
This question will be asked by many who will hear him say, I will do this, I would do things differently. But then they'll ask that follow-up question. Okay, so what have you been doing all this time in the last 7 years when you've been part of the government? To what extent does that affect the believability of what he says? Because people are going to assess not only the substance, which is what he's talking about, Gideon, but also the form of what you're saying, right? Because they're going to be judging and comparing, but you've been part of this. Does that affect believability?
Well, of course it does, but then the extent to which it does is what I believe we are discussing now. Mm-hmm. In a presidential election or in a political campaign or in evaluating a presidential candidate, there are certain things that you evaluate them on. One of it is the person's previous work or their experience or their past performance, okay? But that's just only one end of the quantum. there are other areas or there are other factors that we have to look at in making a very comprehensive and a full evaluation of the people who come before us. So there's past experience, there's character of the individual, there are the values of the individual, there's the vision that the person professes, and there is the experience of the person, there's the competency of the person as well, and there's the inspiration that the person presents to you. So I believe that, yes, this is good to talk about, but it is only one rung of the ladder. And he has told his story that, yes, I was part of this government. However, there was just an extent to which I could do A, B, or C. Then he goes on to talk about those very things that he is going to do differently. Of course, at a certain point, you would have to also talk about some of the things that probably did not go well. And I do think that the vice president and some members of the administration have had to admit on several occasions.
Was it important, you were here to analyze, was it important to have included that in a speech like this? I think acknowledging, take one or two and concede on. Just for him
what
to
else
seem,
did you want
to him,
other than the
to seem
things he
human.
proposed?
I mean, you're analyzing the form,
Yes.
right? In analyzing the form, would that have been important?
Well, under the circumstances of the speech that he gave today and the purpose of the speech, he felt that this was the best way he needed to proceed, especially because he had had the chance in the past, on several different occasions, to lay out or to admit or to acknowledge that, yes, things are not where we need it to be, things are not where we would want it to be because of whatever reason. I think that to that extent, that has been done. I mean, for leadership, for leadership, and even to some extent today, for leadership, one of the things that the citizens always want to hear is also some form of admission that, hey, things are not great, and it also speaks to the fact.
Does that help sell a candidate?
Oh yeah, it does, because
in what way?
Oh yeah. What happens is that it then strikes a certain level of connection with the citizens. You see, the question that you need to answer at every point in time as somebody who is putting himself up for president is the fact that, do you connect with the current circumstance of Ghanaians? Do you resonate with Ghanaians? Are you connecting with the current hardship?
So in other words, you shouldn't pretend that everything is fine with everybody.
Yes, that is something that you need to do. And you need to be able to define the problems of the country in a very realistic manner. You need to define it. What is it? What are the current issues? There should be that connection.
But wouldn't that be arming the opposition?
No.
Bawumia himself is admitting that if they failed here.
Yes, I'm telling you as a strategist that no, it is not. In politics, one of the very first dictums in politics is that you need to be willing to lose in order to win. Nobody ends up being president without being embarrassed in one way or the other. You have to, in order to get that believability, integrity, credibility, or that resonance with the people that we need. And so there is that need to make that admission, because if there is a disconnect between what you're saying and the people, you've totally lost it. And so that is his way of doing it. As to whether the extent to which he did it, it's left with the people of Ghana to make that determination. But I do think that he actually did make that admission in terms of, and not just today, on several different occasions.
And today he did. I can point to the paragraphs.
Right.
Where did he admit?
Yeah, you read paragraph 12.
What did he say?
I mean, from 9 coming, he was talking about the challenges and all of it. He admitted the increase in fiscal deficit, the rising food prices, and all of them are.
But that he attributed to external factors.
No, but why not? If I admit that these are the challenges confronting me or the economy, and there are reasons for that, why can't I?
I guess the question, the point we're making is what was his role or the government's role in those challenges?
No. Look, it is your understanding and how you want to put it. He puts out the problems and says that.
Because don't you also run the risk, and since we're talking about the importance of this kind of messaging to the people, of if you always say it's somebody else's fault, in essence, that also is disconnecting. You're disconnecting yourself from the people, right? If you always say, oh, somebody else created this problem, and I'm having to
You need to go into the speech very well. Every component of it has what is associated with it. In this particular paragraph, he talks about those challenges and attributes them to about 3 or 4 issues. You may see them as foreign, domestic. 2 of them were foreign and 2 of them were domestic. You talk about the domestic issues. Okay, the banking sector cleanup exercise and the energy charges. Those are not foreign. Okay, global financial crisis and Ukraine war were foreign problems. He talks about it. He talks about the domestic. When you go to the task areas, he makes admissions about the fact that we are unable to put in place the systems that are right to generate us the revenues that we need. Therefore, we are piling taxes on people who are paying already. All these are in the speech. All these admissions are there. Then he goes around to tell you how he wants to solve them. You need to go through the speech in total. Of course, I've been part of the preparation, so I know what I'm doing. So that is what is happening. But I think before Doc comes in, what is significant in this presentation by Bawumia is that bold attempt and decision by a sitting vice president, not a former vice president in opposition or anything, a sitting vice president with a sitting president, a sitting cabinet, and he takes a position that are at variance or is at variance
No,
with
not only at variance, it's diametrically opposed.
Exactly. So that is something that is so much...
I was telling him before we came on air
it is so critical
that
we need to applaud him for that. That's never happened.
That if I didn't know Bawumia and you dropped from Mars and you heard him say, I will abolish e-levy, you think he's an opposition leader.
Exactly. And
you run the risk of thinking
this has
leader.
never, I have not seen this since 1992. This has never happened in this country. That a sitting vice president can be bold enough to take such policy, digression.
We'll expand on that thought. Did he maybe take it too far, possibly on this? And I'll pick Dr. Asar Santis' thoughts on the historical significance of what he did as a vice president who is attempting to lead his country as president, and while his government is in power, making very categorical statements about things you abolish when those policies are still in force. Stay with us. More analysis after this. And thanks for staying with us here on PM Express. We are dissecting the Bawumia speech. He made a case today for president, and in making that case, he also categorically created a distance between himself and the current president, his boss. Just before the break, we were analyzing whether in some instances he may have taken it too far. Because as I was saying, if you drop from Mars, you know nothing about Ghanaian politics, and you then had an individual say, if I get the opportunity to become president, I will abolish the e-levy, a tax handle that is currently being implemented by this government, you possibly think that individual is a member of the opposition. But it turns out it is the vice president, who is the chair of the economic management team, who sits in cabinet, who actually makes that statement when that policy is still in force under this government, of which he's the vice president. And it's just going to go to that question next. How do you answer that? Yes, you had wanted to create a distance between himself and the government. But then that declaration, that was not just the only one. There were a few emissions, 15% on VAT, etc. What's your assessment of that?
On earth, why he should have gone against his sitting boss because he's actually still part of the government.
We're joking. So if they go to cabinet tomorrow, and the president is at the head of the table. Yes, you're the one who told the public. Imagine the room when he walks in, when everybody else is there. The finance minister is also sitting there, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So Evans, on a very serious note, our values and our ideals are what is going to make or unmake this nation. And so when you listen to a speech like that, the question in the interpretation or the analysis is that what does that tell you about the individual? It presupposes, and I was on a tangent in terms of the various criteria with which you use to evaluate a candidate. And I said that past accomplishments, which is one. We are just narrowing it down on just one. That's just one. I mentioned a couple of them. So when you move from there, there are other things such as the person's values, the person's ideals, the person's character, the person's the person's competence, and so many other things. Okay, that you use to evaluate him. For me, I think that the fact that he was able to do this is something that speaks to the character of the vice president, and that is somebody, as I said at the beginning, who works within the courage of his convictions. And what are those ideals? What are those values? He basically believes that the digitization is the enabler, or is going to be a catalytic force to spur growth, to spur productivity, and to spur efficiency within our country. And so to the extent that we do have him a sitting president having that courage to be able to go against whatever the president had initiated, shows that this is a leader who is able to act on the strength of his convictions and on the strength of his values in order to propound whatever policies that he would want to propound when he comes into government.
And Dr. Sassan, what do you say to that question?
In politics, at a point in time, you have no choice than to be blunt on what you have on your mind, all right, and damn the consequence. Because, because in politics, there's always reward and punishment. So you should be able to navigate your way very clearly on that. And for me, I mean, what he was blunt on some of the issues, I applaud him for that, right? Because, look, you cannot say anything more than what he said about issue of what making sure that the economy is improved in a certain manner. Look at the issue of what the natural resource issue that you talk about. That you will see to it that it's improved, and we take we're able to leverage on that to ensure add value to our minerals and the rest of them. You recall the Goggisberg economic conversation and how far we have gone. People still express concern about the fact that we did not see much, all right? He's saying that I'm going to take it to another level, all right? That every mineral that will leave this country, we want to add value to it. Yes, you have no choice but to be brutal on this thing and be frank about the issue. On the issue of corruption, look at all the things that he claimed the government had done and all that. But you and I are alive to the Transparency International policy or program that we saw, the score in recent times. So when some of such issues come up and you want to find a way out, you need to be as blunt as possible to tell the people what you have on your mind. And then you leave the judgment to them. So I think that is exactly what he did. And if you go through the speech, you realize that he touched on some of the things, and some of these areas he did not mince words at all. He talked about what he can do in that regard. Take it or leave it. And for me, that is how I see it.
Okay. And Dr. Gideon Bako, so a few things I'm curious about. Did this speech have the buy-in of the president, his boss?
Well, I work with the vice president. I have direct communication with him. Of course, I work on this speech with him. I don't come between the conversation he has with the president, except to sit in cabinet meetings. And I mean, after that, the only time I normally see the president is when we go for cabinet meetings. Any other meeting the vice president has with the president, I'm not there. In fact, I've never been to the president's office before. You understand? So I don't know whether it's, I mean, the president agrees to this or he doesn't.
But it stands to reason, does it not, that if he's going to be this categorical in creating a distance, a conversation would have been had at some point?
I don't know. It is possible. I know Bawumia is a very humble and loyal servant.
But he must have consulted quite broadly before this.
Bawumia is a very loyal subordinate, very humble and a respectful one. So judging by his character and nature, I would be surprised if he decided to say something that more or less differs from a position taken by the president, and he wouldn't consult the president. That is my own intuition. Naturally, I know him and I've worked with him. He consults a lot. Even me as a subordinate, he will barely do something of this nature without seeking opinion from those of us around him. But I also know that he is very much attached to his convictions. You know, there are so many things that happen that people don't know behind the scenes. But Vice President Bawumia has taken a lot of policy decisions that I would tell you from the beginning didn't have the buy-in of government. You understand? But some of them he pushed. I can tell you one is there's drones. When you pursue the action to, get drones into the country and all of that, you needed to get health ministry, this and this to align. It's not everybody who, from the beginning, will align with you, because you need to even explain, because some of these technological types, adaptations are a bit slow on the part of some people. But he needed to push. I remember Sino Hydro, infrastructure for bauxite. It was a whole big deal. But he had to navigate his way through. And because he builds consensus and he knows how to engage people, sometimes he's able to get his position to go through. So it could be that whatever ideas he put out today and whatever position he put out today, he may have discussed with some other colleagues in government or the president. It could also be that he feels that, these are my vision and my ideas. I'm the new flag bearer. But of course, he's going to work with people and the party. It could as well be that the General Secretary, the National Party are all aligned with it. But once he's the leader of the party and he comes with a position, the simple assumption that anybody will make is that it is the entire NPP that supports this. And I don't see anybody in government or in the party who will take a position different from what he has said.
The finance minister is a very key figure in all this. Was he at the speech today?
No, the finance minister was not. The minister of state for finance, Until was there. I'm sure the finance minister is not around. The president himself is not in town. All the deputy finance ministers were there, including the minister of state. But the finance minister himself was not there. So the whole finance ministry was also there too.
Yeah, and today he said something quite instructive, and for us, that's what we read between the lines. He was acknowledging the work that two institutions have done, including himself. He acknowledged the work that the central bank had done, the finance minister had done, and then he also says what he had done.
Exactly.
And why was that important? I just have a few seconds to wrap up.
No, sometimes I think there's a lot of misunderstanding in the minds of a lot of people as to the roles that are played by, certain government, agencies or individuals within government. And this whole thing about EMT has come up. But do you even know that we have cabinet subcommittee on the economy? That one is even there, also there, and it's chaired by another minister. In fact, it's chaired by the trade minister. Now, that subcommittee on the economy, the vice president is not even part of it. You understand? Okay. And that is why he says that EMT is an advisory role. He needed to officially, people don't understand, because EMT is a creation of the president. It's not constitutional. It's not in any books. President Kufuor had his own version of it. President Mills never had an EMT. Mahama never had an EMT. President Mills had an advisory or something. President Kufuor decided to call his team economic management team. If you go to cabinet, there's also the cabinet subcommittee on the economy. In fact, all memoranda to cabinet are sponsored by sector minister.
I don't have time on this.
So he needed to put it into context.
Official commencement of his campaign.
Oh yeah, the campaign has begun, and I am happy that he's begun his campaign on the note of issues and policy. You understand? Sometimes people will begin campaign and it's a train of tantrums and all of that. But Vice President Bawumia, based on his past experience, feels that we need to debate on issues. And like he said, what he's offering himself for is like going for a job interview. He needs to account for what he has done, his previous stewardship, and then show. And I'm so excited that we have begun on such a good note, and we carry that from there.
Great to have you. Great to have you on the show today. Dr. Asasante, thanks to you for having you join us. One of the things we need to also, I believe, analyze with you, and definitely we'll be doing this tomorrow, is the significance of having the former president, Kufuor, there, and speaking. It's been quite a while since he was in himself present for a party event. He was there today. How significant was that? That he was there, but the incumbent wasn't there. how much you read into that. And we just run out of time. Don't worry, this is something that we'll have a conversation. Enjoy the rest of your evening.